Welcome back everyone, Old Bubs here to give you my full review on this Civivi Sokoke. This particular configuration in a nice bead blasted 14C28N in burlap micarta scales. Wait, what is that? Hang on, let me clean this blade off here. Phew, I almost took away people's ability to comment that I don't use my knives. The Civivi Sokoke weighs in at a very reasonable 3.49 ounces, with an overall length of about 7 3/4 inches, a blade length of 3.5 inches, and a cutting edge of just about 3 1/4 inches. For a size comparison, here it is against a Spyderco Para 3 and a Benchmade Bug Out, also a Civivi Elementum and a CJRB Pyrite, and last but not least, a child's alligator bath toy and a saltine cracker. Let's get into the things that make this knife really excellent. First and foremost, it's really smooth operating on bearings with either a thumb stud deployment for traditional flick, a reverse flick, or this knife is also a front flipper, and I would say a really stellar first front flipper because this one is pretty easy to manipulate. To manipulate a front flipper, you just place your thumb over the center of gravity and roll it like you were trying to light a Bic lighter. And if you want to get fancy, your index finger like that. The lockup on this knife is rock solid, and it is also a super smooth shutting knife. These burlap canvas micarta scales are really nice feeling in the hand, and there's a nice contour to give this knife a pretty good ergonomic feel. There's also a little bit of jimping on the spine of the blade here, makes it lock in this position, makes you feel like you really got a good hold on the knife. The bead blasting on this knife is really nice to look at, and for a budget knife it really does stand out in a crowd of just plain old satin finished blades. Not that there's anything wrong with the satin finished blade, but this one just gives a little something different that sets it apart from many other budget knives that I've handled. This knife is really nice and thin down at the edge and is wide enough to be a really nice slicer. I've really enjoyed using this knife for opening packages and food prep, which is probably the thing I use my EDC knife for the second most after opening packages, mail, letters, clamshell plastic packages, you name it. I'm also a really big fan of the pocket clip on this one. It's nicely recessed and the screws don't poke up at all, and this pocket clip is actually a little bit longer than the traditional Civivi pocket clip, and it carries that nice bead blasted finish with it. And while I think that this ramp is a little bit too much here, I didn't have any problems with having this get caught on anything, so maybe I've just been lucky so far. But in the hand, it really doesn't develop too much of a hot spot unless you're really gripping. Let's talk about 14C28N for the steel choice. Sandvik 14C28N steel is exploding in the budget knife category for probably good reason, because it's extremely well balanced and it's a forgiving stainless steel, so it's going to resist corrosion quite well and it's going to be really easy to put an edge on yourself. The biggest drawback to 14C28N is its edge holding ability. If you're a person that's used to really soft stainless steels like a Victorinox steel or 420HC on a buck for instance, this will actually hold an edge really well by your standards. But if you're somebody that's used to the more modern super steels like S30VS 45VN and beyond, you might feel like this guy goes dull pretty quick. However, as long as you don't let it go too far, a few quick hits on the strop and you'll be back in business. I also like on this knife that par for the course with Civivis, it is minimal hardware and the bulk of the hardware here is T8, with both body screws and the pivot being T8 and only the pocket clip screws being T6. Yay for that. The thumb studs are nicely outside of the cutting path, and liner access is actually quite well done and reasonable here, which is not something you see very much. Let's nitpick a couple of things that I find less than desirable about this knife. The first is this spot for a recess for the pocket clip on the left hand side. I'm all for them giving lefties an option, however I think it's missing the really easy nice touch of just being able to slide in a little plastic liner piece that would make that sit flush and not make this a dust trap and something that's going to get roughed up and bent out of shape over time. Another thing, and this is just outrageously nitpicky, I really don't like thumb studs that aren't easily removable. I think it's just too easy to make thumb studs removable, say like on this bug out, and that you don't really gain anything by not being able to take the thumb stud off without heating it up and grabbing it with pliers on both sides. This one is nicely out of the way for sharpening, but so many times when you see this thumb stud, it's right in the way for sharpening and just causes another thing that you have to work around. Another thing is that there is so little room on this blade in the sharpening choil that we're going to get into some fattier meat of the blade after just a couple of sharpenings, and especially on a steel like 14C28N, it'd be nice to have a lot more room to sharpen this knife several times before you're potentially going to start developing a smile or having to have a wider edge bevel at the heel of the knife to get it all evenly sharpened. Those few little nitpicks really are the only things that I have to say about this knife that I don't really like. Perhaps the best thing about this knife is the price. This guy comes in right about $65, and this one does have a few other color options, or flavors as I like to call them. They give you a nice bit of variety to choose the look that you want. While this knife sure doesn't blow my mind or anything, this is a really solid offering in the budget territory. It's really encouraging to see some innovative designs and some actually nice micarta and nice finish jobs on some of the materials from Civivi. And in a world where 14C28N knives have been creeping up and up and up the price tag to where you're gonna start regularly seeing knives in the triple digits with this steel, I'm really happy that Civivi kept this one at $65, keeping it more budget friendly and in reach for many folks who might really like to take a look at this knife. Please let me know your thoughts about this one down in the comments, everyone. I'm always happy to hear what you think, and of course if there's anything that I left out, please drop me a question. I'd be happy to answer it. I really genuinely appreciate your time that you took to watch this video. I hope that you'll let love and light fill your life. Stay sharp out there, friends, and I will see you all on the next one.